major patterns in pre-modern field operations as reflected in the Book of Mormon. Preparations for battle in ancient societies were very complex. Creating an army was essentially tantamount to creating a mobile city. An army had all of the social, the economic, and the logistical needs of a sedentary city. But it faced the additional problems of being constantly on the move and harassed by the enemy, of course. The Book of Mormon clearly reflects many of these problems in its long, dreary chapters on warfare, as anybody who's read it knows. Manpower had to be recruited, and soldiers trained, equipped, and organized into units for marching and tactics, and mobilized at central locations so that they could begin operations. An army generally required a wide range of camp followers to supply its troops with food and supplies. You need porters, cleaners, cooks, and other laborers. The number of camp followers sometimes equal or even exceeded the actual number of soldiers in an army. The army needed to prepare and maintain barracks and arsenals, fortifications, and other bases, and the society had to prepare to maintain some type of a standing army, usually royal guardsmen in peacetime. Getting the troops and supplies to the strategic points of conflict required extensive marching and maneuvering. Any reader of the military sections of the Book of Mormon will recall the seemingly endless accounts of marches and counter-marches. This is precisely accurate in ancient warfare. Not all military conflict in antiquity was characterized by formal set battles. What we in modern times call guerrilla warfare typifies much of ancient warfare. This characteristic of warfare is also very well described in the pages of the Book of Mormon, as can be seen in Peterson's analysis, where he analyzes the nature and the motives of the Gadianton robbers. They sound just like guerrilla warfare warriors. Actual battlefield operations usually represented only a small portion of the time of a campaign, but they were inevitably the most important part of the campaign. Battles began with the dispatching of scouts to reconnoiter for food, trails, and the location of enemy troops. Most ancient armies used spies and other means to gain intelligence, and the Book of Mormon itself frequently mentions the importance of spies and other important Nephite intelligent operations. Military leaders generally made battle plans shortly before an army encountered the enemy. Such plans were frequently formulated by a council of officers and professional soldiers. What they did is they got together and discussed the situation, and they offered suggestions. This is precisely what Moroni does in preparation for battle in Alma chapter 52, verse 19. In theory, units within an army during battle could be controlled and maneuvered and withdrawn on command. In fact, though, when the actual fighting began, such coordination often proved quite difficult to do. Soldiers tended to fight in units, distinguished by banners held by officers or assistants, and the troops simply followed the banner around the field. Recall to mind Moroni's title of liberty, and other banners placed on towers. Cohesion of military formations was often a decisive element in pre-modern combat. It was especially vital for defensive purposes. For an organized body of men could mutually protect one another, while a single isolated man would be subject to attack from the side or from the rear. Work by Merrill has demonstrated that armies in the Book of Mormon were organized on a decimal system of hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. This followed a pattern similar in ancient Israel and was probably the most widespread system of military organization in the ancient world. There was also a clear ranking of captains and chief captains, and there seems to have been a basic continuity between officers and their units. Battles frequently began with an exchange of missiles to wound and demoralize the enemy. Only when the missiles were exhausted did hand-to-hand combat ensue. The battle described in Alma chapter 49 offers a good description of archery duels preceding hand-to-hand melees. When panic began to spread in the ranks, a complete collapse could be sudden and very devastating. The death of the king or of a commander often led to the complete collapse of an army, as happened in Alma chapter 49, verse 25. Casualties occurred most during the flight and the pursuit after the disintegration of the main units. Now, battles in the Book of Mormon often end with descriptions of just such routes, flights, and destructions of armies. Alma 52, verses 26 through 36, Alma chapter 62, verses 31 and 38. The political and legal norms of war. Each ancient civilization developed its own political and legal norms by which it was supposed to conduct warfare. Of course, in antiquity, as in today, such legal norms were often honored only in the breach. Nonetheless, ancient societies often professed important laws and patterns of behavior regarding international relations and diplomacy. Perhaps the greatest distinction between the modern and the ancient international affairs is the ancient emphasis on personal oaths. Zink's paper in this volume shows that ancient military oaths were taken very seriously, and the Book of Mormon emphasis on oaths of loyalty from troops and oaths of surrender from prisoners illustrates these ancient concepts very well. Now, this is the other side of the diamond that I've been showing you. I go around the other way to at my camp. But this is the diamond from the other side. You can see it's a very rugged mountain. Either the second or third largest, tallest peak in Idaho. This is quite the rugged mountain landscape. There's the bell. Doesn't look like a bell from here. When I get on the highway, I'll show it to you. Haven't been on top of that yet.